What if the HOA you shrugged off as a joke rolled up with bulldozers to obliterate your one piece of sanity, and you discovered they've been siphoning millions from your neighbors' wallets? That's the chaos I plunged into last summer, and it's not just about a few plants. It's about how low they'll stoop to own you, and how I'm about to burn their world down. Hey, if you're with me, hit that like button if you want to be a winner in life, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I want to know who's riding this storm with me. Let's jump in. I'm Ethan Carter, 42, a former lawyer who traded courtroom wars for a quieter life in Pinewood Grove, a tidy subdivision just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. 15 years in Raleigh, shredding contracts and egos, left me hollow, until I found salvation in soil. Gardening became my rebellion, 6 raised beds in my front yard, tomatoes, peppers, zucchini. My stake in the ground against this sterile suburban trap. The sun hit perfect there, and every root I planted screamed freedom. June 12, 2024, 7 a.m. I'm out there, sweat burning my eyes, tying up my last tomato plant. The air's crisp, the silence is mine, and I'm alive. Then her voice slices through, sharp, like a judge's gavel on my skull. Ethan, what the hell are you doing? I whip my head up. Karen Mitchell, Pinewood Grove's HOA overlord, stands at my lawn's edge, blonde bob a fortress, arms crossed like she's sentencing me. 3 years she's ruled this place, a clipboard-wielding tyrant in designer shades, and now she's eyeing my garden like I've committed treason. Morning, Karen, I say, flashing a grin as I smear dirt across my jeans. Growing some veggies. Want a pepper when they're ripe? Her eyes narrow, venom glinting. This is a violation, Ethan. Front yards are for grass, shrubs, approved aesthetics. Vegetables. Backyard. Hidden. Covenants rule. Her words bite, like I've defiled her perfect little kingdom. I rise, dirt caked on my knees, and stare her down. Here's a fun fact. Karen, my deed's older than your HOA. Granddad owned this dirt before you were a bad dream. I've got exemptions, darling. Legally, you've got no grip. She doesn't flinch. Exemptions don't mean squat. The board owns this neighborhood. She yanks out her phone, snapping pics like she's prepping my execution. Violation notice drops tomorrow. Tear this trash out, or the fines'll drown you. She spins, click-clack, and struts off. Mr. Thompson across the street shoots me a grin. He's still fuming over the $200 fine she slapped him with for his ugly mailbox last year. That night, I'm pacing my kitchen, old legal juices simmering, when I spot it. A neon yellow notice plastered on my door. $75 daily fine until unapproved agricultural activities gone. Hearing, June 20th. I rip it off, chuck it onto my counter with the pile I've named Karen's Vendetta. But this isn't just her usual petty crap, it's a gauntlet thrown. My pulse kicks. She's gunning for me. Next morning, I'm chugging coffee, digging through property deeds on my laptop, when the earth shakes. Engines roar, deep, savage, like a reckoning unleashed. I bolt to my porch and nearly choke. 3 bulldozers, squat in my driveway, blades flashing, caging my car. Karen's there, smirking in a blazer, flanked by some suit, oozing arrogance. Neighbors, Mrs. Davis with her yipping poodle, the Hendersons' kids on bikes, gawk from the sidewalk, jaws dropped. Ethan Carter, Karen bellows, voice ringing like a war cry. Emergency board meeting last night. Your little farm's a public blight. We're flattening it, now. The suit steps up, tie pristine, smirk lethal. Michael Hayes, HOA Counsel. Section 9.2, Immediate Remedy for Nuisances. Lights out. My blood ignites, fury surging through every vein. They're not just fining me. They're here to bulldoze my refuge, my stand, my guts. I clutch my phone, lawyer instincts roaring awake. Michael, you better bone up on real law. 'Cause you're about to crash into a legal buzzsaw. Karen's smirk twists, pure malice. Save your tears, Ethan. Your garden's history. The bulldozers growl, lurching forward, and I'm shaking, not with fear, but white-hot rage. They've got no idea who they've provoked, or the secrets I'm about to unearth. This isn't about plants anymore, it's war. The bulldozers' engines snarled, inches from my garden, and I could feel the heat off their blades. Karen's smirk burned into me, Michael's tie gleamed like a noose, and my neighbors watched, some horrified, some just eating popcorn with their eyes. My phone was a lifeline in my fist, and I wasn't about to let these clowns steamroll my soul without a fight. I stepped off my porch, boots crunching gravel, voice steady as steel. Karen, Michael, last chance. Move those machines, or I'll bury you in court faster than you can say trespassing. My exemptions aren't a suggestion, they're ironclad. Karen laughed, sharp and hollow. You're bluffing, Ethan. This is HOA turf. We win. She waved at the operators, 3 guys in hard hats who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The lead one hesitated, glancing at me, but cranked his lever anyway. That's when I hit record on my phone, voice booming. For the record, this is Ethan Carter, June 13th, 2024, 8:47 a.m. Pinewood Grove. HOA is attempting illegal destruction of my property. I've got the deeds to prove it, and I'm texting my old law firm right now. I tapped my screen, firing off a message to Jenna Brooks, my ex-partner from Raleigh who'd shred these amateurs for breakfast. Michael's smirk flickered. Threats don't scare us, Ethan. We've got bylaws. Bylaws don't trump county law, genius. I shot back. You're parked on my easement, my land, my rules. That's private property you're defiling. Karen's face twitched, but before she could spit more venom, tires squealed. A black SUV roared up, and out stepped Sheriff Dan Carter, no relation, just a grizzled guy with a badge and a don't mess with me stare. Behind him, Linda Harper, the county clerk, hauled a fat stack of yellowed maps. The crowd, now 20 deep, murmured. Phones out, filming. What's this? Karen snapped, her cool cracking. We don't need cops for HOA business. Sheriff Dan tipped his hat. Got a call about a property dispute. Sounds like you're overstepping, ma'am. He nodded to Linda, who spread the maps across his hood like a battle plan. Pinewood Grove, 1972, Linda said, voice clipped, pointing at faded lines. Ethan's granddad sold most of this land for development, but kept 5 plots exempt from any future HOA, his included. Plus, he held the utility easements under every main road. Those bulldozers? Sitting on Carter family turf. My chest swelled, vindication tasted sweet. Told you, Karen. You're trespassing. Michael scrambled, flipping through his briefcase like a kid caught cheating on a test. This can't override our covenant. It's from 1998. Linda adjusted her glasses, calm as death. County records from 72 trump your 98 paper, Mr. Hayes. Ethan's exempt. Always has been. Karen's face went crimson. Even if his house is special, he can't defy community standards. Actually, Sheriff Dan cut in. He can. County zoning says veggie gardens are fine. You've got no jurisdiction here. The lead bulldozer guy killed his engine, hopping down. I'm out, lady. Not touching this without a court order. His buddies followed, backing off my driveway. The crowd cheered. Mrs. Davis's poodle barked like it had won the lottery. Karen whirled on me, eyes wild. This isn't over, Ethan. You'll regret this. I leaned in, voice low, lawyer mode on. Oh, I'm just getting started. Those easements? I own them. You're on my turf, literally. Trespassing, attempted property damage. I'll see you in court. Michael grabbed her arm, whispering fast. Her glare could have melted steel, but she was cornered. Sheriff Dan stepped up. Folks, clear these machines out. Ethan, want to file a report? Damn right, I said, adrenaline pumping. Let's make it official. As the bulldozers rumbled away, my neighbor Grace Miller, 80 years young, leaning on a cane, shuffled over. Ethan, she rasped, voice barely above a whisper, you've kicked a hornet's nest. Come by my place tonight, 7 sharp. Bring those deeds. I've got something you need to see. Her eyes flicked to Karen, who was retreating to her Lexus with Michael, both looking rattled. What's that? I asked, pulse still racing. Grace smirked, a spark in her wrinkled face. Proof they've been screwing us all. Big time. The bulldozers were gone, my garden stood tall, and the crowd dispersed, some slapping my back, others buzzing about taking down the HOA. I watched Karen's car peel out, her taillights fading, and felt it, a shift. This wasn't just my win. Something bigger was brewing, and Grace's words lit a fire in my gut. Whatever she had, it was about to blow this neighborhood wide open. Grace's words clung to me like damp soil as I locked my door that evening, the sun dipping low over Pinewood Grove. My garden stood proud, tomatoes still staked, peppers untouched, but the fight wasn't over. Karen and Michael had slunk off, tails between their legs, yet I could still feel her venom in the air. Whatever Grace had up her sleeve, I needed it. I grabbed my deed folder, a flashlight, and headed 3 doors down, my gut churning with a mix of adrenaline and dread. Her porch light flickered as I knocked. 7 p.m. sharp, June 13th, 2024. Grace opened the door, cane in one hand, a thick manila envelope in the other. Her silver hair glowed under the bulb, but her eyes were steel. "Come in, Ethan. Quick. Too many years out there." I stepped into her living room, cozy, cluttered with decades of memories. Photos of her late husband, Tom, lined the walls, a retired CPA, she told me once. She shut the door, locked it, and pointed me to a worn armchair. "Sit. You're not gonna believe this." She handed me the envelope, hands trembling not from age, but fury. I tore it open, and my lawyer brain kicked into overdrive. Bank statements, HOA meeting minutes, tax filings, pages stamped with Pinewood Grove letterhead. Grace leaned in, voice low. "Tom taught me how to sniff out fraud. Last year, Karen fined me $150 for my porch swing. Said it was too bright. I got mad, started digging. I flipped to a statement dated January 2023. Special assessment, community pool upgrade, $250 per household, 120 homes. I did the math fast, $30,000. Grace, our pool's the same cracked mess it was 3 years ago. Where'd this go?" "Keep going," she said, tapping a sticky note on the next page. It was a wire transfer, $28,500 to Mitchell Hayes Consulting LLC. My jaw tightened. "Karen Mitchell and Michael Hayes?" "Bingo," Grace said, a grim smile tugging her lips. "They've been at it since 2021. Pool upgrades, road repairs, playground fixes, over $400,000 collected. None of it spent here." I scanned more docs, transfer after transfer, all to their LLC. My blood boiled. This isn't just petty fines. This is theft, felony-level fraud. "There's more," Grace said, voice dropping to a whisper. She slid me a final page, a proposal dated May 2024. Plan to enforce covenant violations on select properties, forcing sales below market value. Target, original homesteads. 5 addresses listed, hers, mine, and 3 others. They buy cheap through their shell company, flip, and for triple. My hands shook, rage surging. They're preying on us, folks who can't fight back. "You're 80, Grace. This is disgusting." She nodded, eyes fierce. "I've been quiet too long. But you, Ethan, you've got the law in your bones. We can stop him." I stood, pacing her creaky floor. "We need proof they can't dodge, public records, witnesses. I'll call Sheriff Dan, get this to the county prosecutor. But we've got to move fast. Karen's not dumb. She'll cover her tracks." Grace grabbed my arm, grip surprisingly strong. "Not just us. The neighborhood's waking up. After today, they're pissed." Use that. She was right. The Bulldozers stunt had flipped a switch. People who'd grumbled in private were now buzzing. I'd seen it in their eyes as they cheered me on. This wasn't my fight anymore, it was ours. By 9 p.m., I was back home, phone buzzing off the hook. Text from neighbors, "Mr. Thompson. Heard about the easements. Can they find my shed?" "Mrs. Davis. Karen charged me $300 for my dog's bark last month. BS." I replied to each, adrenaline pumping. "Meeting tomorrow, 7 p.m., clubhouse. Bring every HOA notice you've got." Next morning, June 14th, I woke to a voicemail from Sheriff Dan. "Ethan, got your report filed. Those docs Grace mentioned? Send him over. County's sniffing around the HOA now big time." I grinned, forwarding scans of her envelope to his office. The net was tightening. That evening, the clubhouse was packed, 60 people crammed in, chairs full, folks lining the walls. I hooked my laptop to the projector, Grace's evidence glowing on the screen. "This is what they've been hiding," I said, voice steady but burning. "Over $400,000 stolen, your money, my money, for fake projects. And they're planning to force out our originals, Grace, me, the Petersons, for profit." Gasps rippled through. Mr. Peterson, 73, stood, voice shaking. "They fined me $500 for my fence height last year. I paid to avoid the hassle." Mrs. Lopez yelled, $200 for my kid's bike in the driveway, 2 days. I clicked to the LLC page, Karen and Michael's names in bold. This is where it went. Their pockets. The room erupted, anger, disbelief, a chorus of "what the hell?" I raised a hand. "We've got cold sheriffs on it. County's digging. But we need to act. Tonight, we vote, dissolve this board, elect temps, rewrite the rules fair." Mr. Thompson jumped up. "I say we kick him out now." Cheers exploded, unanimous, 60 hands high. Grace caught my eye, nodding. We were a freight train now, unstoppable. As folks signed the petition I drafted, legal as steel, my phone lit up. "Karen, I stepped outside, air cool, and answered. Ethan, you've torched everything, she hissed, voice shaking. You think you're a hero? You're a fool. Nah, Karen, I said, calm as a blade. I'm just a guy who likes tomatoes. You're the one who stole from us. Game's up. She laughed, brittle, desperate. You'll see what I can do. This isn't over. Click. I stared at my screen, her threat echoing. She was cornered, dangerous. But as I walked back in, seeing my neighbors, fired up, united, I knew we had her beat. Whatever she threw next, we'd crush it together. Karen's voice lingered in my head like a bad smell as I stepped back into the clubhouse, her threat. You'll see what I can do ringing hollow against the roar of my neighbors. 60 voices buzzed, signing my petition, forming committees, audit the books, rewrite the rules. Pinewood Grove wasn't hers anymore. It was ours. But I knew she wouldn't go quietly. Cornered snakes strike hardest. The next morning, June 15th, 2024, I woke to a text from an unknown number. Check your yard. My stomach dropped. I bolted downstairs, flung open my front door, and froze. My garden was a war zone. Tomato plants yanked out, peppers stomped flat, zucchini beds a muddy smear. My security cam app pinged. 3:12 a.m., 2 figures in hoodies. Even in grainy night vision, I clocked Karen's stiff bob and Michael's lanky frame. She'd looked right at the lens, smirked, and dragged a shovel across her throat like a promise. Rage clawed my chest, but I swallowed it. Evidence first. I saved the footage, texted Sheriff Dan. Vandalism, trespassing, caught on cam. It's them. His reply hit fast. Patrols en route. Stay sharp. By 9 a.m., my street was a circus. 2 news vans, mics in my face. Ethan, is it true the HOA president trashed your property after you exposed her? A reporter barked. I nodded, voice tight. Yeah. She's mad I caught her stealing $400,000 from us. This is her tantrum. Word spread like wildfire. By noon, 40 neighbors swarmed my yard, shovels, seedlings, fury in their eyes. Mrs. Lopez, 50, who'd barely waved before, thrust a tomato plant at me. Karen fined me $300 for my son's skateboard last year. We're with you. Mr. Peterson, still raw from his $500 fence fine, clapped my shoulder. Let's rebuild it, bigger. We did. By dusk, my garden was back. 8 beds now, not 6, a defiant green middle finger to Karen's meltdown. Sheriff Dan rolled up as we finished, papers in hand. Ethan, county's got him. Karen and Michael were arrested this morning. Fraud, embezzlement, $428,000 missing from HOA accounts. Your footage sealed the vandalism charge. The crowd hooped. Mrs. Davis's poodle yipped like it got the memo. I grinned, dirt under my nails. What's next? Court, Dan said. They're done. County's dissolving the HOA. Your petition pushed it over the edge. That night, my phone buzzed again. Karen, calling from a blocked line. I answered, calm as ice. Ethan, you think you've won? She snarled, voice frayed. I'll drag this out. Lawsuits, appeals. You'll choke on legal fees. I laughed, low, cold, lawyer steel in my veins. Karen, I've got the deeds, the footage, and 60 witnesses. You've got nothing but a cell. Enjoy the view. She sputtered, then hung up. Checkmate. 2 months later, August 17th, Pinewood Grove threw a block party. Our first as a free neighborhood. Karen's old house, sold after her arrest, hosted it. The new owners, the Garcias, loved our vibe. Mrs. Garcia even planted herbs out front. We'd axed the HOA, formed a Pinewood Pals group instead. Fair rules. No fines. Gardens welcome. Grace handed me a ripe tomato from my rebuilt beds, her smile warm. You didn't just save your plants, Ethan. You saved us. I bit into it. Juicy, sweet, worth every fight. I just wanted to grow something real, Grace. They made it a war. She squeezed my arm. And we won. The street hummed. Kids laughing, music thumping, neighbors who'd been strangers now swapping stories. Karen and Michael? Facing trial, broke, finished. We'd turned their scam into our strength. My phone pinged, Sheriff Dan. Plea deal signed. They're gone for good. I looked out at my people, my garden, my peace. This wasn't the quiet I'd moved here for, it was better. Write a comment if you've had an absurd encounter with an HOA or heard about a situation from someone you know. Subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on HOA stories and their possible solutions.